It's 3:14 in the morning. You're lying on your back. The ceiling above you is doing that thing ceilings do in the dark. It feels closer than it actually is. Your body is heavy. Your mind is quiet, almost quiet, the way a room gets right before someone speaks. And then it happens. That falling feeling. Your whole body jolts, like the floor just disappeared under you, even though you never left the bed. You felt this. Everyone has felt this. Scientists will tell you it's just a muscle twitch as your brain powers down for the night. That's the textbook answer. It's also incomplete, because underneath that twitch, there's a feeling you've never been able to shake. A feeling like something in you almost left, like you were standing at the edge of something, and your body yanked you back just in time. Hold on to that feeling, because tonight I'm going to tell you exactly what it is. Jesus taught about this moment, not to the crowds, not in the parables that got written down and repeated in every church for 2,000 years. He taught it privately, to a small circle of students he trusted, the ones ready to carry knowledge that wasn't meant for everyone yet. And what he told them was this: that falling sensation right before sleep swallows you whole is not your body glitching. That's your soul checking the door. Stay with me tonight, because by the end of this, you will never lie down in the dark the same way again. The biggest truths in human history were never the loud ones. The things that actually change how you see your own existence don't come shouted from a stage. They come quiet. They come whispered between two people who trust each other completely. That's how real knowledge has always traveled, long before institutions built pulpits and put locks on the doors of understanding. Jesus taught on two levels. In public, he told parables, seeds and soil, lost sheep, wedding feasts. Simple stories for people who weren't ready to hold anything heavier yet. But privately, with the students who had proven they could sit with difficult truths without breaking under them, he taught something structural. Something about what a human being actually is underneath the skin, and what happens to that deeper self every single night. This teaching survived because it was never written down. Written words get copied, edited, translated, argued over by councils centuries later filled with men who never met the teacher. An oral teaching passed carefully from one trusted person to the next doesn't get corrupted that way. It either survives intact in someone's memory, or it dies with them. There is nothing more sacred than that kind of fragile precision. One of the teachings that survived this way, quietly outside the official record, was about the one thing every human being on this planet does every single night without ever asking why. You go to sleep. You've done it your whole life. You'll do it again tonight. This is not a small thing. This is the most spiritually significant event that happens to you on a daily basis, and almost nobody has ever taught you to see it that way. Every night, you hand over full control of your consciousness to something you cannot see, cannot verify, and cannot remember afterward. You stop being able to move your body. You stop being able to reason clearly. You lose track of time completely. And you call this normal. You call this rest. Strip away the familiarity for a second. If this happened to you once, as an adult, for the first time, if you suddenly discovered your mind detaches from your body every 24 hours and disappears somewhere you cannot follow, you would demand answers immediately. Jesus called the moment of falling asleep a threshold, not a switch, not an off button, a doorway, a thin place where the wall between one state of existence and another becomes thin enough to see through. He told his closest students this, in words that have echoed through the centuries in circles far outside official religion. The body sleeps, but the one who watches does not. Say that back to yourself. The one who watches does not sleep. There is a part of you that never powers down. It stays awake behind the part of you that goes dark every night. Sleep is not absence. It's not nothing. It is a nightly initiation that every single human being survives without ever consciously agreeing to it. I think that's one of the most beautiful facts about being human. I also think it's humbling, because something in me has been doing this every night of my life, and I have never once said thank you to it. This next part changed how I think about my own mind, permanently. A human being is not just one thing. You are not a person in the flat, single sense you were taught in school. You are built in layers, 3 of them. The first layer is the body self, the flesh, the heartbeat, the breath, the weight of you on the mattress right now. It's real. It matters. It is also the outermost, least essential layer of who you are. The second layer is the psychic self, the mind. Your personality, your memories, your fears, your habits, the voice in your head that never stops narrating your life. This is the you that you think of as yourself most of the time. The third layer is the one almost nobody talks about anymore, and it is the layer this entire teaching is built around. It's called the pneumatic self, the spirit spark. A tiny, undiluted piece of something greater lives inside every single human being, regardless of what they believe or how they were raised. Some call it a spark of the divine. Others call it the watcher. Same fire, different names. Here's what happens every night when you fall asleep. Your body self shuts down. That's the exhaustion you feel, the heaviness, the need to close your eyes. Your psychic self doesn't fully shut down. It drifts, and that drifting is where dreams come from. Your mind sorting through fragments without the discipline of waking logic. The third layer, the spark, is the part that actually leaves. Not permanently, not dramatically, it detaches from the weight of the body and the noise of the mind, and moves briefly back toward the source it came from. Valentinus, a 2nd century Christian mystic, and one of the most influential teachers in the early Gnostic movement, whose students carried his work across the Mediterranean world for generations, taught exactly this layered structure of the soul. He taught that a spark of the divine sits trapped inside physical matter in every human being, and that spiritual practice, including what happens during deep sleep, is the spark remembering where it came from. Machines don't dream. Machines don't wake up crying from something they can't quite remember. You are not a machine losing power at night. You are something that goes somewhere. So here's the obvious question, and the answer to it is the entire point of this video. Why can't you remember it? If your spark genuinely leaves every single night, if some part of you touches something vast and returns before morning, why do you wake up with nothing? No memory of the journey. No proof. Just an ordinary morning, coffee, alarm clock, the day starting like it always does. The forgetting is not an accident. It is not a flaw in your memory. It is protection. It is a veil placed deliberately over the experience so that your fragile, waking mind doesn't fracture under the weight of what the spark actually encounters. This is not a fringe idea invented for this video. The concept of a merciful forgetting between states of existence runs through many ancient mystery traditions across many centuries and many cultures. The idea that a soul crossing a threshold passes through a veil that wipes clean the full memory of the crossing, leaving behind only a residue, a feeling, a dream fragment that dissolves the moment you try to hold it. Jesus told his closest students this directly. If a person remembered fully what their spirit touched each night, it would be too much for the clay to hold. Too much for the fragile human vessel to carry into an ordinary Tuesday morning. The forgetting is not your soul failing to communicate with you. It is your soul protecting you from more truth than you are built to hold while you're still wearing a body. That is mercy, not malfunction. So where does it go? You, specifically. Not humanity in general, not the soul as some abstract concept in a textbook. You lying wherever you're lying right now watching this. Where does the deepest part of you travel tonight, every night, while your body lies still and your mind drifts through half-formed dreams? The soul does not leave the universe and go somewhere else entirely. It moves toward what Gnostic teaching calls the pleroma, a word that means the fullness. Not a location on a map, a condition, a state of completeness. The source every single spark, every single one of us was originally cut from. Picture warmth returning, just for a few hours, to the fire it was pulled from. It doesn't stop being fire. It doesn't become something else. It simply stops being separated from where it began. Then gently it's called back into the smaller shape it needs to hold during the day. Your body, your name, your face in the mirror. Picture a single drop of water that spent all day apart from the ocean, finally finding its way back for a few dark hours, dissolving completely into that vastness. No edges, no separation, no loneliness, before being pulled back out again in the morning, reformed into a single drop, because a drop is what the world needs from you today. Jesus described sleep to his students as a rehearsal, a nightly rehearsal for a much larger return every soul eventually makes. Not something to fear, something your body has already practiced thousands of times, whether you noticed it or not. This reframes death completely. If you've already done this 10,000 times, if your spark has already left and returned 10,000 nights in a row, then the final return is not some unfamiliar terror waiting at the end of your life. It is a doorway you've already walked through more times than you can count. You just never got to keep the memory of the ones before. That single idea has taken more fear out of the dark for me than anything else I've encountered in years of studying this. Now ask the uncomfortable question. If this teaching is this beautiful, if it offers this much dignity to something as ordinary as falling asleep, Why did it stay hidden for 2,000 years? The answer says more about human institutions than it does about the teaching. An idea that says you, personally, without a priest, without a building, without a formal ceremony, touch something divine every single night just by closing your eyes. That idea does not serve centralized religious power. If direct access to the sacred is available to every person, every night, for free, the structures built around controlling that access lose their grip. This is not an attack on any modern faith. It is a pattern that has repeated across history, across many cultures and many centuries. Teachings that decentralize spiritual authority get pushed to the margins, preserved only in secret circles and oral tradition. Teachings that centralize authority around an institution get written down, canonized, and repeated from the front of a room. This teaching survived only in whispered, oral form for one reason. It was never given a stage. It slipped through history in small groups, master to student, generation to generation, staying alive because it never needed permission from anyone in power to keep being true. So what do you do with this tonight? Not tomorrow. Tonight, when you turn off the light and your head hits the pillow and your body starts that familiar slide towards sleep. I'm not handing you a checklist. Turning something this quiet into rigid instructions would betray the entire point of it. But I'll tell you exactly what I do. Before I fall asleep, I notice the moment itself. Not fight it, not analyze it, notice it. The heaviness settling in. The thoughts slowing down. That strange, quiet stillness right before consciousness lets go. And when that falling feeling comes, the one from the very beginning of this video, the jolt that used to just startle you awake, sit in it for one extra breath tonight. Feel it for what it actually is, your spark at the threshold, checking the door before it goes. You don't need certainty for this to change something in you. You only need to hold the possibility for a few seconds in the dark. That's the entire practice. Holding this possibility gently changes your relationship with sleep completely. It stops being empty time. It becomes, every single night, a quiet appointment you didn't know you were keeping. Let's go back to where we started. It's 3:14 in the morning. You're lying on your back. The ceiling feels closer than it actually is. Your body is heavy, your mind is finally quiet, and then, that falling feeling arrives again, right on schedule, the way it always has, the way it always will. Except now you know something you didn't know at the start of this video. That falling feeling was never your body malfunctioning. It is your spark, standing at the edge of the day, about to slip briefly back into the fullness it came from. Not lost, not gone, returning, the way it does every single night of your life, whether you ever noticed it before tonight or not. Tonight, when it happens to you, remember this. Feel that falling not as fear, but as familiarity, as mercy, as a doorway you've already walked through more times than you'll ever be able to count. This is one thread pulled from a much older, much deeper body of teaching that most people will go their entire lives never encountering. If tonight's video meant something to you, stay close. There's more of this, and I'm not done pulling threads. Sleep well tonight, and when that falling feeling comes for you, let it.